wanted to make your own game because today's show is all about making games from scratch.
That's right, Hex. We're going to meet some makers, some developers, some artists, some game reviewers, and we're going to find out why games are just so seriously awesome.
Yes, now this show is a little bit different, so we really want it to be your show. We want you online, at home, asking some questions for us to answer.
That's right, and we're going to pick the most interesting and quite possibly the strangest questions we can to try and answer on the show.
Yes, we also want to know if you've ever used Scratch yourself or coded your own game. Why don't you just jump online and tell us about it?
But the big question is, just what goes into making a video game?
Magic, Barjo. No, we do have some people who can answer that question as well. We have Rebecca Fernandez, she's from the Academy of Interactive Entertainment. Also Daniel Donahue from Project Synthesis. And of course, the legendary Goose and Darren. They'll all be online answering your questions about how to make your own game.
We've also got some guests here today. We've got Justine Colla, who is a games artist, Carlton Zhu from Enjoy Labs, and also Julian, who creates his own games with Scratch, Python, and also Raspberry Pi.
And we are also joined in the studio today by Kinma and Ferncourt Schools. Woo, guys! Now, people have been playing games for thousands of years. Behold, the legendary D20. That's a 20-sided dice bar, Joe.
A lot of sides.
Yeah. You use that to play really awesome tabletop games like Dungeons and Dragons. But take a look at this. That's a D20 from ancient Egypt. It's over 2,000 years old.
That's pretty old.
How cool is that?
That's pretty cool. People forever have been playing games, and they used to use sticks and cards, and they also used even decapitated heads and bones to play games. But it's only been in the last 50 or so years that we've been using computers to do so.
Okay, so I have a few gaming objects here. Some you might recognise, some you might not. Think of this as an archaeological display of gaming history. So I have a little bit of a mission for you guys. What I want you to do is see if you can identify what these items are and also put them in the right order. Do you think you can do that?
Yeah. Yep.
Seems pretty hard. I don't know. I'm not even sure if I know the answer, but we'll see if we can do it. So we'll start with this end being the oldest and maybe this end being the newest. Do you recognise all of these items or some of them?
Yes. I don't recognise all of them. I don't recognise all of them.
Which one do you think might stump you a little bit?
Probably that one.
Okay. So this is the power glove. Have a think about what that might have been used for and how old it might be. This one is a pretty obvious shape, but we don't know how new or old that one might be either. Do you think you're going to go well at this challenge? Be honest.
Yeah.
You're going to ace it?
No, not ace it, but pretty well.
Okay, well, good luck, guys. You're going to need it. Let's go over and see what Barjo's up to.
Thank you. That's my personal power glove, so please be careful with it. It's very precious to me. We've got some game reviewers over here. Now, what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to get together, we're going to play games for 10 minutes, and then try and review them. So, what are you playing there?
New Super Mario Brothers 2.
New Super Mario Brothers 2. There's always a new Super Mario Brothers around the corner. And what are you playing?
Tearaway.
Tearaway. Ah, okay. Tearaway on the Vita. And what are you playing here on the arcade machine?
I am playing Ninja Turtles 2, I think.
Ninja Turtles? Ninja Turtles, one of my favourites. Okay. I used to line up around the street for that game when I was a kid. 20 cents a pop it cost at the arcade machines. Okay, guys, so what I want you to think about is what makes these games great, what makes them bad, and then give them a score at the end. So that's what we're going to do. We'll come back to you in a little bit. But now, Hex has got some experts, and we're going to go meet them.
That's right. Have you ever wondered what the people who make games actually look like? Could they look like this? Yes, because these guys both make games. Awesome. So we've got some questions that we'd like to ask you about how you make games and what your process is.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. Why don't we start with you, Justine? Hello, Carlton. Justine, tell us, what do you do, and explain what your role is.
So I'm a game artist. That means that I make the games look pretty. So the programmers, they put in all the code, they make it actually work, but then everything you actually see on the game, that's what I'm in charge of.
Have you always wanted to do that job?
Yeah, ever since I was 14.
All right. And what do you like about it specifically?
I think it's just really rewarding to see other people play your games once it's finished, because when you're an artist, you're doing all the assets one at a time, and you don't really see anything put all together until it's all finished. And then when you actually see people playing the game and everything's kind of working in tandem, that's really rewarding.
Oh, that sounds rewarding.
Brilliant. Okay, well, Carlton, thank you so much for being on the show. First of all, can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yep, so I'm a games programmer. So what that means is I type a lot of lines on the code in order to make things work. So every time a character needs to move around, I need to type it so he makes it move around. And every time I need to kill some monsters, I type some lines to make him kill some monsters.
You make it sound so simple. I don't think that it would work if I tried that, though. So how did you get into games development?
Well, like many people, I like playing games. And so being a kid, maybe I always wanted to work in games one day. And so I started off in a more artistic role in games and wanted to do that. But halfway in my studies, I took on games programming, and I found that really fun and enjoyable. And since then, I've switched from being an artist to becoming a games programmer.
Brilliant. Okay, so we have some online questions I'd love to ask you. The first one is from Eleanor. She asks, once you've made a game, what's the best way to get people to play it?
Well, it's all about marketing, and there's so many ways that you can do that these days, especially with accessible programs like YouTube and stuff. So you put your games out there. There's also a lot of different things, like game development groups that are around that you can join. There's a huge industry community, especially in Sydney, that everyone just loves to show off their games, and everyone's really supportive.
I've got an online question as well. Luca asks, what special skills do I need to make a computer game? Carlton.
Well, first of all, you probably want to play a lot of games, and that's what everyone likes to hear as well.
Problem.
Like, they want to play games. Like, yeah, play games. But yeah, playing games definitely helps in terms of getting you knowing better on what games are good and what games are bad. And so you've played good games, you've played bad games, so you know what's good and bad. And so when it's time for you to make a game, then you know what you should do and what you should not do.
Brilliant. I also have another question. This one's for either one of you. What inspires you to make games?
I think it is playing games. It's whenever I play a game, I'm taken to a different universe. I'm taken to a fantasy landscape or up in space or pretty much anywhere. And I kind of lose myself for a couple hours. And that's just the most amazing thing that not a lot of other mediums can do quite so well. So I think that is the most inspiring thing about games to me.
And what about you, Carlton?
Oh, to me, it's all about coming up with really good ideas that hopefully no people have ever seen. And because making games is all about innovation at times. And so sometimes it's like, whoa, that's a really great idea. But it's not out there at the moment, and I just really want to get that out and show it to people.
Brilliant.
I have a personal question. Can I ask it here?
Sure.
What's the hardest part about each of your jobs?
For me, it's time, but also I usually get a list of just assets of what to do, and I kind of don't really know how it's all going to fit into the big picture until a lot later on. So I just kind of have to assume, and you've got to make sure, and as an artist, you need to keep your art consistent throughout the whole game, especially if you have more than one artist and they all have different styles.
And what about you, Carlton? What's the hardest part of your job?
The hardest thing for me is if I need to make games, then I cannot play games. So like during my own time, I can either decide whether to either make my own game or play other people's games. And a lot of time, and I find making my own games fun as well. So it's not totally bad, but that means, I see all those games out there that I can't play. Yeah. But otherwise, in terms of programming-wise, probably the most intense part is have to just usually think a lot, and that usually, after many hours, you get some headaches, and then.
Right.
But yeah, that's probably.
Lots of thinking. Take breaks to play other games.
Yeah, and then you take breaks.
Give yourself a reward structure.
But then you take breaks, and then you end up playing that game for another few hours, and then forget about your game. So.
I have one more online question. How do you make a 3D game like Assassin's Creed? How do you make a game in 3D? What goes into that, Justine?
It all comes down to the type of engine you use. So that's the program that you put everything together in, and then you can feed in art, and then you can also feed in the programming as well. Things like Source, Python, UDK, those kind of games you can all put 3D assets into. You can rig them, make the characters move. Everything happens from the engine up.
I remember when games went from 2D to 3D, wasn't it? Wasn't it a wonderful time? Right, well, we've got, I think Hex has got some games over here. Hex, you're putting them in order. What's going on over here?
Yes, so we're going to see how we went with our timeline. Just to recap, we've got the Atari 2600. This is a PlayStation 1 controller, the Power Glove, a Skylanders Portal, and a Guitar Hero guitar. So guys, are you feeling confident?
Yeah. No.
You've been confident from the start, but you are not so sure. Okay, well, I'll let you know. First of all, are there any last-minute changes you want to make? I feel like I should always give everyone that chance. Last-minute changes. You're confident? Okay,
Yeah.
well, not quite. You've done well with the Atari 2600. That one is definitely the oldest. The next one to come in this timeline was definitely the Power Glove. So the Power Glove was a device that's it was trying to do what the Kinect is doing now with motion control. You put it on your hand, it looked really cool and sci-fi and awesome, but it actually didn't work that well and it sold really badly. So anyway, that came second. Next we had the PS1 controller, so that goes there, followed by the Guitar Hero guitar. So that one was a kind of a flash, well, it wasn't really a flash in the pan, it was popular for a while, no one plays it anymore, but it was a great device while it existed. Skylanders Portal is definitely the most recent. Have you guys played Skylanders?
Yeah, a little bit.
What about you?
Yeah, I've played it.
Yeah, so that's probably the one that I figured you would recognize the most because, well, it's the most recent. So there you have it. Atari Power Glove, PlayStation controller, guitar, and most recently, the Skylanders Portal. That's our timeline. All right, so let's check out what Barjo's doing back with the Game Makers.
Thanks, Hex. All right, guys, we've got some more questions. You know what, though? I would like to know, when you're designing a game for the first time, what's the first thing you should do? Why don't we start with you, Carlton?
Designing the first time, well, one thing we start off always with a prototype. And basically what a prototype is a very simple version of the game. It could be on paper, or it could be just using simple cubes and blocks, just to try out the game. And then once you have that ready, you give them to your friends or your family to try, and let's see if they enjoy it and have a laugh and like it.
Have you ever made a prototype which wasn't as fun as you anticipated it would be?
Yeah, definitely. Like a lot of games, when you make it, some work and some don't work. And then those that don't work, you either decide whether to scrap it and try a new one, or try your best to get it better.
And Justine, thank you. What's an example of a prototype you may have made that didn't go down so well?
Well, there's a thing called Game Jam, which is a 48-hour game challenge, and you kind of get together with random teams. And honestly, they're the best times to fail, because you make something, it's really not that good, but you're like, I only lost 2 days, so on to the next thing. It really is, failure is the path to success.
I see, it's a good line. Failure is the path to success. I've got some more online questions here. TNT asks, is it fun to make a computer game? Is it fun? Why don't we start with you, Carlton?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I wouldn't be spending many, many hours on my weekends not playing games, making games, if it weren't fun. So it's really fun to make a game. And the most funnest part is to actually let your players play it, that moment when you spend all that hours working on it and people finally play it and really enjoy it. I think that's worth all the effort.
And Justine, do you find it fun?
It's yes and no, because it is so much fun. I love art. It's my passion. Getting to do that every single day. But then there are the fun types of art and the not so fun types of art. I mean, I love doing the characters and the items, but when it comes to like the UI, that's kind of just very basic stuff. It's not very interesting, but it's very useful, and that's the utility of the game. You do have to spend a lot of time on that to make sure it looks good.
That's true. A bad user interface can be very frustrating when you don't know where things go and what you can click and what you can do. I've got more online questions. Keep coming in, so keep them coming in, guys. Mr. Mustache asks, would you say it's hard to make games?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
We've kind of already talked a little bit about the hardest parts about it being time, would you say? The time involved?
And also effort. I mean, you're spending a lot of time to make these games. You're also putting a lot of love and sweat and tears into it, sitting in front of the computer for hours on end. And if you make a prototype that you've spent a whole weekend on and then go show someone and they're like, that's really bad, I don't like that, you're like, you don't understand, I've spent 100 hours on this, like, how could it be bad? But you have to learn to just, that was a failure, move on, don't get too attached to your ideas.
It must be hard when you put so much time of your own personal experience into it. Too. You must get very close to the projects that you design,
Definitely,
I imagine.
yeah.
Like it's a part of you.
Yeah.
I've got another question coming in off the press. Okay, this is a winning question. It's from Cohen from Nicholas Point, who asks, how do you make different sorts of games? Oh, okay, so this is about how do you make different sorts of games, like if you're approaching something like a racing game as opposed to maybe a platformer.
Okay, so all games are actually quite similar in a way because you just got the looks, and then all you need to do is figure out what do you actually want to do in the game. Do you want to hit people? Do you want to drive a car around? Or do you want to play some sports? And all you do that, once you figure that out and you define the rules and what you want the player to do, you simply make that happen by getting the art and the coding happening.
When it comes down to programming, it's really, there are a lot of languages, but they're all kind of very similar. So if you know a couple of very key languages in programming, you can pretty much make any game you want, be it an MMO, be it an FPS or a mobile game.
Oh, it comes down to the base language, I see. Okay, well, Hex has a special guest now. Hex.
That's right. Now, Julian, you're no stranger to Good Game. You've been on the show before, haven't you?
Yes.
Well, it's great to have you back. Now, Julian has been making his own games from scratch. So let's have a look at some of the games that Julian has made. Over to you, Goose.
So what kind of programs do you use to make some of your games?
Well, I use Scratch and Python mainly. Scratch is all graphics and dragging and dropping, whereas Python is typing up.
So Julian, can you show me some of the projects you're working on?
Yeah, sure.
Great.
A game I created is a recreating of Portal 2.
You actually made Portal?
Yeah.
Okay, can you show me how?
Yeah, so when you click, you fire a blue portal. And when you push space, you fire an orange portal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I've heard you've actually made a Good Game game. Is that true as well?
Yes.
Can you show me that one?
Game.
Oh, wow, look at that. I'm actually on the screen.
Yeah.
And Darren's there as well. So it's Space Invaders with Spawn Point.
Yeah.
So how many points do I need?
20.
20 points?
Yeah, the only way you can do it is by shooting all 3.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right, sorry, Goose. Oh, I missed him. Fire again. Take that, Hex. Take that, Barjo. Take that. Lasered. I'm just gonna hide behind the shield. Oh, I'm running out of lives. This is really hard. Game over. 14.
Game over, 14.
14.
I can't believe you made all those games, Julian. That's amazing. So we have a winning online question I'd love for you to answer. It's from Harry, and he wants to know what game-making programs are available and free for us to use?
Well, first for mainly beginners, you can start by using Scratch, which is free, drag and drop, and it's easy to create detailed games. And once you get more into it, you can start by going into other softwares like Python and C.
So when you say Scratch is free, drag and drop, can you tell us a little bit about what that means?
It's free to download off the internet, and you make programs by dragging and dropping blocks of code.
Okay, so basically if somebody wanted to start making games, they wouldn't have to know how to code specifically. They could just drag and drop bits that have already been coded.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Okay, well, I've also got some other online questions that have come in for you. This one's from Clo, and she asks, what program do you use to make games colourful?
Well, you can use many different graphics. You can use graphics editors like GIMP and Paint, Inkscape. There are a few popular image editors.
Is the art process of making games something that's always interested you, or do you like more sort of the technical side of it?
I more prefer the technical side to the game.
So maybe in the future you'd employ an artist or someone to come work for you and design some cool sprites and characters.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool. Okay, I've got another question here from Average Girl. She asks, how long does it take to build a game?
It really depends on what type of game you want to make. For example, if you wanted to make a platformer with heaps of levels, it'd take longer than a platformer with, let's say, 10 levels, because then you need to design every single one of the levels rather than just do one level. And if they've all got the same idea, it's easier because you can duplicate them.
It's pretty impressive what you've done so far. What really got you into making games in the first place?
Well, I started with the Raspberry Pi. It's a computer that's the size of a credit card. And I used it and I got into Scratch with that and found the online tutorials for Scratch and Python.
Brilliant. Okay, wonderful. Well, we might see if we can catch up with Barjo and what he's been doing. Thanks so much for all your advice, Julian. Barjo, how are you going with your game reviewers?
Don't dig straight down, you'll hit a cavern. Just be careful, don't go straight down, it's the biggest mistake. Oh, sorry, just doing a bit of Minecrafting over here. But we have the review zone. There has been some serious critical analysis happening here on this platform. And why don't we start over here? Tell us again which game you're playing.
New Super Mario Brothers 2.
Okay, New Super Mario Brothers 2. What did you like about the game?
I liked how it's simple and easy to start playing.
Oh yeah, so it's easy controls, easy to understand what you're doing?
Yeah.
I see. And is there anything you didn't like about it?
Well, all the levels are pretty similar.
Bit repetitive.
Yeah.
It's a classic gripe we have with a lot of the Nintendo games. They seem to release the same thing with a few tweaks. That is changing though, slowly. Oh, thank you very much. What would you give it out of 10?
Maybe 7.5.
7.5, oh, okay, cool. A bit above the safety score of a 7. I like it, okay, some serious analysis. All right, well, let's swap places. Why don't you come forward here and let's have a, thank you very much for that. What are you playing here again?
Tearaway.
Tearaway, all right, what did you like about Tearaway?
Well, I like the artistry of the characters and the scenery, and I also liked,
You like the look of the game, the way it's designed, the art behind it? It's a beautiful looking game, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Is there anything about it that you found a bit confusing or you didn't like, perhaps?
It was a bit confusing. Yeah, I didn't know where I was going.
Bit hard to pick up and play, perhaps. Takes a bit of time to get used to the world and how it all goes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
What would you give it out of 10? What would your score be?
8.
8 out of 10? Oh, we're getting some high scores up here. Okay, thank you very much for that. And why don't you turn around here and tell us what you're playing over here on the arcade machine?
I was playing Ninja Turtles 2.
That's right, Ninja Turtles 2. And what did you think of the Ninja Turtles game? What did you like about it?
I liked how the controls are really simple. There's, jump, attack. It's really simple to figure out. And yeah, it's easy.
Did you have a favourite Ninja Turtle? Say Raphael, he's the best. Say Raphael, he's the best one.
Raphael?
Yeah, Raphael's the best. Good choice. Nice choice. And was there anything about the game that you didn't like?
Well, it was really the same in every level, really, and it really repetitive. And
Did you get up to the Bebop boss, the big rhinoceros guy? Did you get up to the guy?
Yes.
He's tough, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. What would you give it out of 10?
6.
6 out of 10. Oh, 6 out of 10. Okay, we'll talk about this later. Oh, we've actually got another winning question here, which I might just get off quickly. So this one is from Lauren, who says, how did you make the Zoom game on Splash? That's a great question. Well, Zoom is just one of 200 games on Splash, and they're all made in different languages. Bernie from ABC Science has answered the question in detail online below. Now, I think we're going to go over to Hex.
Barjo, I feel like we should be worried about our jobs. Those reviewers are pretty good. Okay, well, since we've got so many great game makers in one place, we might get some advice from you guys for all of those guys out there that really want to make their own games. We've got some more online questions, of course, coming in. This first one is from Tiana. She asks, what materials do you need to make a game? Anyone?
Okay.
It could be, honestly, board games are still considered games, so it could be pen and paper. Then there's Dungeons and Dragons, which is all getting in a group and writing it down and having a dungeon master. But then it's also having your computer, having Photoshop, having Source or UDK or any of those kind of engines.
Is there a pen and paper process that goes into making a digital game, or do you just get straight in and start coding?
Definitely. Like the first thing you usually do before you go into computers is actually write down at least something in terms of sketches or just writing text on what you want the game to be and sort of plan it before you go into making it.
You'll find that game designers have just notebooks and notebooks of if they're on the train or going to work or something, they're like writing all these ideas down. Game designers just come up with everything on the spot and then writing it down for a different time in case they forget it.
Brilliant. And I have a question for all of you. What do you think makes a game awesome?
I'd say really the smooth controls, movement, because that can give an entirely new addition to the game. If you have it so it's really jolty, you can get past a hole that you need to go down.
Yeah, you don't want to be playing a game and then have it let down by the controls and make it feel like it's your fault.
Bad controls.
What about you, Carlton?
Yeah, well, you'll know a game is awesome when the players playing it actually have a good emotional response to it. So if they're playing and you're watching their faces and they're like, wow, or they're like, ooh, and they're making a lot of happy gestures, then that means the game's pretty fun.
I tend to get a bit emotional when playing games sometimes. I've cried now and then, I'm not afraid to admit. I've got one off the press here. Sarah asks, what is the most popular game to create, build, and play? Why don't we start with you, Justine? What's the most popular game out there? Genre?
Genre? Well, I mean, a lot of people can... There's a popular game in every single genre. I mean, obviously, World of Warcraft would be the most popular one in an MMO sense. FPS, you're probably talking Call of Duty or something like that. Recently, there's a really great game out called Dota 2, which you can submit your own items and stuff. Just anyone can do it. So there's a lot more options that are coming out that are making it more accessible for everyone out there to make their own game and get their own art out there.
And would you say that the popular genres change over time? Like for a few years it might be one genre and then the next? And
for sure. I mean,
what drives that?
Mobile came out of nowhere, and also Minecraft, that was sandbox, which we hadn't really seen for a really long time, and suddenly everyone's talking about Minecraft, and it just, from seemingly out of the blue.
It's funny how a game will come out on the App Store or whatever, and then suddenly, within a week, there's about 30 clones of the same game with a strange twist on the name.
Totally.
Yeah.
I've got an online question from Jag2, who asks, what are some of the key points to remember when making a game? So do you guys have a checklist when you make a game, you think, have I done this, have I done that? What about you, Julian? Do you have any key points to remember?
Not really, except for making it fun to play through.
That's pretty good advice, actually. If it's not fun, then it's not going to be really good for anyone, is it?
Yeah.
What about you, Carlton?
No, Julian's totally right. Like fun in terms of just letting the players actually play it. And so the most important point is once you have your game, even the most simplest version, you want to let your friends and family play it and see if they're happy or laughing about it. And if they're not, then maybe you want to go back and fix it up until they're actually laughing or how you want them to actually feel about your game.
Yeah, an emotional connection is really important, isn't it?
Yeah. Have I mentioned that I've cried sometimes? When playing games? I cry sometimes. Yeah.
For me, I think I just want something that's really teaches me something new, or something that I haven't experienced before. That's always really exciting. Also, I like a really great art style, something that really kind of shows off some new and interesting design. That's really cool to me.
I love a good challenge, personally. I like to be challenged and try again and again and again until it's a little bit better, until I've mastered the game completely.
And you are the game
I am the
overlord.
game overlord. I have one more off the press here, and this might be a good one for you, Julian. Is game making for all ages? Can anyone do it? When did you start?
Yeah, I started at the age of 9, I think, or 8.5.
Whoa, that's pretty young.
So I'd say that anyone can start getting into it if they're interested and if they want to spend the time.
It's about time, isn't it? Time and commitment. And when did you guys start?
Well, I knew that I wanted to start making games when I was 14, but it wasn't until I left school and went to college for it that I actually started learning how to do it, because about 5 years ago, there wasn't a lot of information out there for it. I really didn't know how to get into it till I got into college, so 18.
Well, that's really inspiring for all the young gamers out there who want to become game makers. Guys, we're almost out of time, so thank you so much for joining us on the show. Justine, Carlton, Julian, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And also a big thank you to our game reviewers. Well done, guys. Some critical, hard analysis there. And a huge thank you to Kinmar and Ferncourt Schools.
Now we want to throw it over to you. So we want you to basically build your own game. You can do it any way you want, and tell us about it.
That's right. You could make the game using Scratch, or you could draw characters out on little bits of card and do a storyboard. Any way you like. We want to see those videos, and you can actually win actual stuff, real life stuff.
Yeah, and I guess just think about all of the advice and bits of information you've heard from our game makers today. Think about, I guess, making it fun and challenging and engaging and have interesting art, all those kinds of things. So yeah, you can check out the Splash website to find out how to enter. And I guess there's nothing left to say except get coding.
Yeah, thank you everyone.
Thanks guys.
Bajo out.
Hex out.